All right. This home therapy lark is actually quite good. I'm getting more comfortable doing it this way. I can tell let's get this therapy set. One thing that's been bugging me for a long time, not bugging me, is again how I stand on the opposite side of what other people's perceptions are. And it's because I haven't explained myself properly or I don't have time to. Last night I was at this birthday party on the Rock. I went over and I met some new people at a house on the island, and they were really nice guys, and they were saying, "You knew?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I had a bar here." They said, "Really?" And one of the first questions I always get is like, "Oh, you had a bar? How long did you have it for?" Now, it's a normal question. My immediate answer would be like to say, "Well, long enough." But you can't do that because it comes across as rude. So I tell them, well, not even a year. I mean, I had 2 seasons. I had the full winter season, and I got well into the summer season at circumstances, etc. But enough for me to know that for me it was a success. 9 months was enough, but people don't see that. 9 months, that's not a career. How can you possibly know in 9 months? Well, all right, in my defense, Your Honor. Doctor, it's fairly simple. This little Bahia bar that I bought on this little island was exactly what I wanted. I dreamt of doing, and again, know it all. Well, yeah, I can run a little pub. I can do anything, right? I mean, there's got to be nothing to it. I've been in a bar forever, and I know how it runs. I've been, a good host. Beers, wine, gin and tonic, whiskey, soda, how difficult can it be? I know how to make a Bloody Mary, I suppose, but yeah, that's it, And thought, well, you quickly learn. That was the first thing. And this is why I'm going to go on and say that I had such fun with this thing, this is why I say, no, it was a huge success, because I got it out of my system in record time. So I could move on to the next thing, which happened to be learning how to whitewash houses or whatever, it doesn't matter. Here's what happens, right? Got this little pub on this island, and it was just the right size, and it was what I wanted. It wasn't much bigger than this cockpit. I mean, 40 people, and it was in an old oven, a 250-year-old oven in the corner of the room, and little benches around it. It was so quaint. The bar, Jesus, was, I don't know, 2 arms lengths. I mean, it wasn't a long bar. 6 people could sit in it. And you get in and out with a little flap, and the only thing I had was a little fridge underneath this size with the ice, all these things. But I did exactly what I wanted, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I formed it in such a way that it was just too much fun. All right, this was in 1985, and in Greece in 1985 it was still EEC, and anyway, this little bar, this little Irish pub became really popular in winter. We had a lot of fun. I started off shit like it. Poker dice was a game that, was always on the go. I had chess, tavli, which is backgammon, and card games. I mean, you could do whatever you wanted. And I did funny little things. Like one of the things was I inherited a guest book. Nice big, I've got it around somewhere. Hardcover, nice guest book. It says guest book, and people have enjoyed your stay or enjoyed your restaurant, because it came with a restaurant. Lovely food, blah, 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 Pete made it. And I thought, no, this is I don't know what got into me, but the bar became so funny. All these characters that Douglas, Anthony Kingsmill, I can't even mention all of the others, and locals as well, Donkey Man. They'll all get into it, but, well, it was just a club. It's exactly it. Anyway, a couple of Americans. This is how you learn lessons very quickly on the island. You think you know it? Wrong. So I go in and they say, "Oh, so you open your little pub?" So my mate Jeffrey says, "Okay," and he walks into the bar and he's got this evil grin and he says something, I can't remember the drink, but it's something like a sidecar or a Harvey Warbanger or a Mai Tai, one of those fucking things. And I went, I said, "Okay, I know what you're up to." But hey, I had a lot of all the liqueurs, all the basics that should be in there. I had a little cocktail book under the counter. Oh yeah, there it is. And I'm going, shit, and I struggled with this, and it became a hard work. And I can't remember all the ingredients, but there was a certain procedure. I thought, fuck, this is work. What's the point of doing this if you just want to drink? Anyway, I was learning a lesson and it became a joke, you know? And I thought, right, you fuckers. They come in every night and they, you know, I mean, Winnie and Cindy came in and we'd have a white Russian and a black Russian, which involves Kahlua and other shit, right? And Baileys. And, you know, Anthony Kingsmill would come in and I had a Sterner in there, right? And it was traditional, like all the big old houses had this Sterner, but it was open. And this little bar, I mean, you know, well, what happens, of course, cigarette butts went down, ashtrays went down, all sorts of crap went down, and it basically stank, you know what I mean? It wasn't designed for that, and of course it had to be clean. But anyway, got in line is, so this Sterner, and it was about so round, right, and about this high, waist high, yeah, that was it. And it had a thing over it for a sort of iron thing for the bucket to be hoisted up and down. Pretty, okay? So here's two things. First of all, I had the bar was pink, and I inherited a pink bar. And I had it painted white and green. And green, being Irish, I thought that'll be, you know, I'd already been doing it for a few months. I had my locals, there was a naval college and the local Greeks, the donkey men, everybody came in, it was lots of fun. But I closed for a couple of weeks while we had it painted. So I had it painted green and white. And they generally, you could set your clock by who came in. The first one was Pavlo, Tiflos Pavlo, blind Pavlo. He was an ex-Navy captain or something, and he was going prematurely blind. And he was a wonderful guy. He, on the clock, as I opened, 7 o'clock every night, come in, same stool, right? And he spoke very good English, because I didn't speak any Greek, and hey, he'd come in, he'd have his whiskey. He was a good customer, and I think he'd have 2 whiskies, and that would be his lot, and then off he'd tumble, right? But because I was still sitting at the bar, we started playing poker dice, and he would tell me what he had, Dio Asas, da-da-da. And on the, anyway, just a funny story, when you how your brain works, and I swear this happens, like on the second day I'm playing him, and you know, poker dice, and I throw the bus, and I have to tell him, I said, 5 aces, and the expression on his face, remember he's blind, he's looking at nothing, it's 5 aces, now, I mean, come on, in one throw. So I'm going, Pablo, I'm telling you the truth, it's there, and because he was first and there was no witnesses around, but we had this joke, he grinned, and he did believe me, of course, and you know, I wished I would lose, and actually it was the first time in my life where I thought, oh man, I wish I hadn't thrown 5 aces. One of the little twists. Back to this book. So the guest book, I decided, people would come in and then funny shit would happen in the bar, and I'd start writing these things down. So I said, I know what I'm going to do, right? Just for the crack of it, because it's my own pub, I can do what the fuck I like. Got the old guest book out, change it. It's now a quote book. So Douglas said something like, if you notice this notice is a notice, then you've noticed blah blah. Or there was a lot of very funny quips that would come out. Some very stupid, drunken ones, some were quite clever. Some were from people like Anthony Kingsmill, who would come in every night and look at that down the stern and go, are you well? Ha ha. This is a joke. This is after I turned it into a wishing well. And that sort of stuff. And regulars who didn't even live on the island would come backwards and forwards. But the point I was going to say was when I reopened with green and white, the donkey men were the first contingent generally that they'd come in for theirs, and they'd often just take a bottle, pay for them, they'd say, well, dosame bocali and glasses, and they'd sit down so they could serve themselves. They were so easy, and they'd just tell me how much they'd have, or they'd bring the bottle back, and I would say, well, that was, and they'd pay me. And it was in drachmas, and I mean, it was cheap. Greece was very cheap in those days. And so on. But this night they came in, they had a look around, it all smells of fresh paint. Pavlos is sitting there, right? We're playing our poker dice, this is the second one. And Pavlos, who can't see, comes in, he knows I've renovated, and the guys are sitting in the corner, and there's a rhubarb going on. I'll tell you about what rhubarb is. Rhubarb going on amongst them, and they're like, oshi, nero, water. Oh, fuck, okay. And they sit there, and there's like a little huddle going on, and another one joins in. And they're still there. And Pavlos says to me, and he says, you paint the bar? I know. I said, yes. He says, what colour? So I said, green. He said, green. Why? I said, because I'm Irish. And, you know, I came from Africa, and it's also green and gold down there. It just fits me, man. And I said, I thought and it's a nice colour. I love green. It's my colour. Oh, he said. So he turns around and he says to the donkey man sitting in the corner, hello, I've in Irlandos. This guy's Irish. He doesn't know anything. What's the problem? And this problem was, except he's in a Pasok. They thought I was Pasok, and at that time the island was near the Gramatia. Anyway, this bunch, anyway, it was like the enemy camp. Pasok was the socialist government of Papandreou that was in at the time. And they thought I was a Pasok socialist. And this was a conservative island, and I made a big fuss. And so when Pablo, the twist is, of course, he was blind, so he didn't know to change colour. Otherwise, I would have pre-known. And these guys, for David, and they came up, bring 2 bottles. And you know, that became a joke. And so there was that sort of thing that went on. And this quote book became one of those things where people would come in and they'd say funny quotes. There was a guy on the island called Bob McLean. He was a Canadian writer. Long history with Bob. He was a very funny guy. Very vain sort of fellow, but he was a funny guy. And he would come in and he wrote novels. And he'd come in there and take from the quote books, you know. I mean, he wouldn't take, but he loved it. He was just one of the characters who was in there. We loved Bob, right? This Canadian Professor Bob, who was a complete womanizer. I mean, he would say terrible things like, he'd proudly say, I'm just here to cut one of the heifers out of a herd. Bob, you're fucking awful. But it was the 80s. That was funny. We called him Aspero Bob because he never got tanned. He would wear suntan block, even when we go on boat picnics. So we all went on boat picnics. And he wouldn't go in the sun because he wanted to keep his smooth, pale complexion. And here's Bob still around. He's still probably the only one who's in his 70s now with baby skin. But anyway, Bob would do quotes and this quote book, and then it got around. And then, of course, it got out, being the island, how you learn so quickly, right? Oh, I was in Pan's bar last night, and Pan, who was a mate and helped me set up the bar, Pan's bar, and so-and-so said such, and I said, guys, I have to hear it from whoever's in my bar. Those are the rules. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's like plagiarism or something. It's my little game. It's not to attract customers. It's just for the fuck of it. And that kind of shit. And it was wonderful because I was in charge. And this was exactly it. But I also learned, God damn it, first of all, you can't drink yourself until you think you're in control. You don't buy drinks in the bar, it would be too easy. And, you know, in the mornings you've got a stinky bar and ashtrays and you've got to mop it out and turn the stools upside down and chlorine, and then you didn't have ice machines, so the water trays had to be frozen and put in the little fridge, and one of those plungy things for the glasses, but it wasn't enough. And reset it up. So that was in the morning. Then you had to shop and restock the fridges. This is all done, and then you had to get down to do your, I called it PR. Going down to the Breakfast Club for my PR, and I joined the gang with Jeffrey and Colin and Douglas and Bill Cunliffe and the gang. It was just this tight little community. And because I'd come in winter, at the end of the summer and in winter, there were no tourists around, and there was so few tourists. In winter, there was 1 cruise boat a day, with mainly Japanese, and it came in for an hour in the afternoon. That was it. It's a different life in a different world. But so easy. I got so many of these stories, and I loved that bar. This is why I'm saying I really did. But I also put it in there. I realized after a few months of this, and summer changes atmosphere, that if I did this for a decade, I mean, Bill was my example, not anything else about that. But Bill would, anybody who's had a bar will tell you, and if you're doing everything yourself, the hours, and if you like drinking and partying with the boys, at the end we'd close up and go down to the port because you had to close by 2 o'clock by law. Go down to the port and take a bottle with us, but I'd have been dead a long time ago. I mean, it was great party and all that, but that's a fact. And also I understood how things got perverted. You know, my little bar, I had this woman came in one night. One of the things I had was chess. And there was this guy called Pablos, and I was playing chess with this guy. He was a really good chess player. That's trying to pat myself in the back. I could hold my own. And we were been playing, and it was in winter, remember? This is Idra in fucking winter. There's no cruises or terrorists. I mean, if a tourist walks in, it's like, wow. And this woman, Cherry, was on the Hanadira ship. And this is how I learned how the island can get, and the bar and everything. came in and said, I'd like an Irish coffee. Now, I had a thing saying, look, Kate buggered off to bed. As was normal, the kitchen, there was a different part. There were two businesses. But I will make, I'd advertised, wintertime, an Irish coffee. So she came in, I don't know, let's say 1 o'clock in the morning. I had an hour left to be open. And I was, Panos and I had been playing for like a long time, on and off while I did other things. And it was the last, you know, if you've ever played chess and it's almost like 3 pieces left in the board, and it can go either way. And he's sitting at the bar, and Sherry comes in, and I said, well, the boss guy said, if you give me a minute, love, I'll go and open up the kitchen, I'll make you a coffee, right? And I can make heat up coffee, because I don't have it here. And so, okay, so Panos and I thought a little bit more, and maybe it took, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, it wasn't that long, and there was a few other people, because it was still open and quite busy. Anyway, I said, right, sorry, Sherry. She said, I don't want it now. And off she buggers, right? So I went, oh, well, that's okay. Saves me make. I didn't think two things about it. Went down to do my PR at the Lyco the next morning, and there are 2 definite camps among the expatriates. And there's for and against me. What? I said, what now? I've got this cute little bar, I'm doing you all a favour, and then you play something. No. This is a thing I had to learn. The customer is always right. Sherry came in there and she went down and said, I went in there and this new guy, he comes from Africa and he's Irish and he made me sit. I asked and he said he could make me a nice coffee and he just sat there continuing to play chess. How bloody rude. And I'm not going there, and I suggest if that's how he wants to make money and if that's how he wants to do his business, he's not going to have me. And then Jeff and the others saying, hey, come on, man, you're being a little heavy and customers always right. So I came along and I was faced with that and it turned into rhubarb. I mean, early days, I learned all sorts of things that you don't expect from good nature. I had no rudiments. You know, Sherry we got to know was like that, God bless her. You know, I mean, she was the one, give you an example. Around that time, just afterwards, they wanted to bring cars to the island, and we got like, wow, fucking no way. The thin end of the wedge. One moped, and we'd be like Porus and Spetzes, the other islands. And it was unique because we don't only have 2 fucking garbage trucks. It's all donkeys. No, this bulldozer started digging from Vlichos along the coast road without there was no cell phones, no communication. This fucking bulldozer appears. So we went up in arms and there was petitions and, oh man, it was stopped, okay? It was threats of putting sugar in the petrol tank and a sit down on the Vlichos road. And the debate, but again, everybody says, we all agree, we came to this island, but there is going to be the one person, it's obvious, it was so obvious to all of us, but not knocking Sherry, God bless her, but she turns around and says, hey, it's their island, you guys are foreigners, you have no right. If they want to have, they say it's just going to be one little bus for the old people to go to Vlichos. And we say, hey, but Sherry, yeah, but the one bus becomes what? You know, it's a road for the old people, and if it's their island, if they want to have a little bus and make a little bit of money, who are we to interfere? So you can see, and this is like 1985. I'm going, fuck me, George. Welcome to the international community way of thinking, isn't it? So the things like that actually were very big lessons. You know, I wasn't going to be right, and there was going to be lots of unforeseen hiccups along the way. So, with all those things that I could be bitter about, I'm not, because it was all part of the experience. I had the entire owning a bar on a Greek island experience. I had it. And some of the most interesting people in the world came through there in that little bar. I met them. They became friends for life, some of them, and so on. But there, 9 months. So when people say, oh, 9 months, it was a failure, and you know, and then the conversation said, oh, right, he bought a bar and it failed and that was it, and he just hung around. But it wasn't like that, guys. Wow, that was a huge stepping stone. It really was. The Bahia bar, and it was great. It was such a different world. I was so blessed. It was the hardest working, harder than anything I've worked in my life, in some ways, and the most fun and joyful, and the stories that came out of it, I mean, were endless. Every night was theatre. I mean, really was theatre. And somebody would bring in a guitar in, and they would, you know, and we're not going to name names because that name dropping, but there were some people that this little bar was it. So that's my rhubarb for today. I'm going to tell you what rhubarb is. Uncle Jack, God bless his soul, followed my mum out to Africa, and he was in radio, and he was working at what is the South African Broadcasting in Auckland Park. He was the head of radio, and he had plays translated into like loads of languages. He was playing screenwriter, was on television. Anyway, bottom line is, one day I was with Jack, because I was still wondering what I was going to do in life. I was being drafted into the Navy. And I went to the studio, and here's, if you've ever been into a radio, it was quite fascinating. Like the one guy, there's like only 3 of them in there, right? And here's the things, they've got a table with kitchen utensils, and each one can make a different sound, like a gun being loaded or whatever, And over here was a staircase, and one bit was metal, and the other was wood, and the other was stones. And you just go one up and down, 3 steps, and so on and so on. And one of the things I really got, and it came back to me from my dad made me sit and listen to the Goon Show every Sunday. This Jack says to me, he says, come over here. He says, right, if you wanted to sound like a mutinous mob, you make some announcement, the emperor says, and then the crowd is like all really unhappy, and you wanted to sound like an unhappy, mutinous, big mob of people. All you need is 3 people standing around a microphone, and they say randomly, rhubarb, 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 rhubarb. And 3 together comes across as this huge crowd. And I thought, I love that. It just stuck me from that day. And I've sort of loved, to me, rhubarb is Hydra's rhubarb because it's 3 people into a microphone, making enough noise to, to start up a riot or whatever it is, a big rhubarb. And this is why I stuck with that word. Anyway, I'm enjoying this. We're getting this shit out of my system at last. And I'm enjoying this because it's safe. This is a safe room. I can do this without thinking about it. And as I said, no more. It sounds ridiculous, but if I think of followers and publishers, I've done the publishing stuff, I've done these things. I'm doing this to clear my head because I'm a little bit fucked in the head after 6 years of being on my own. And it's been some sort of frustrating. I haven't finished things, and I've reached 66. I've got to finish these stories, and some of them I've just got to tell. I don't know why. But anyway, right, that's the bar. There'll be more, I'm hoping, down the way.